What's up, everybody? Geoff, iNcontroL Robinson here with another Dawn of War 3 commentary and cast. Of course, this is going to be more analytical as per the other videos, but for those of you tuning in that are expecting just kind of a shout cast or some kind of, competitive breakdown, this is not that. This is going to be myself against a guy by the name of BadManLarry, who is also a streamer on Twitch at twitch.tv/BadManLarry, all one word. He's a great Ork player, funny guy, calls himself the highest Ork on ladder. I won't take away the spoiler of why that is the case. The only warning I would give, and again, he's a nice guy, he's funny, it's a good stream, but he's been really salty lately, hating on the game and stuff like that, which isn't my bag. I don't enjoy that kind of stuff, but if you can get past that, he'll play a good 7 or 8 hours almost every day and be entertaining the entire time. I want to give a quick little breakdown. We're going to pause it here and kind of talk about the elites on both sides and just the setup. And while I pause, by the way, just a quick comment on that. As I do these, there will be pauses. I have not been playing Dawn of War for years and years, or I am not so mega familiar with Dawn of War 3 that I can watch, commentate on everything that's happening, and leave it going. So there's a few comments where people are like, "Stop pausing," and I want to watch the game. It's like, okay, well that's not what this is. I'm gonna pause so I can talk about stuff, and if that really upsets you, then feel free to leave, I guess. But just opening up into the intro here into this 1v1, let's talk about the elites on the Eldar side. We have Striking Scorpions, the Wraith Lord, and the Shooty Wraith Knight. I don't think this is the most optimal setup. I think it starts the most optimal. Excuse me. I feel like Striking Scorpions, and I'd love to hear a discussion to the counter of this, but I feel like they are an absolute staple in terms of coming in at an incredibly important time where you're usually using Dire Avengers to kite and be annoying, but not really able to strike any kind of death blow unless your opponent overextends, and that's both Space Marine, Ork, and I feel Eldar. Obviously, to a little bit of a lesser extent Eldar, because you're in a mirror matchup, so if your Dire Avengers beat their Dire Avengers, then you're in a good situation. But the Striking Scorpions come in, and they allow you to do things like push onto a shield generator, and certainly take out resource nodes and that kind of a thing. But, that's less important because, of course, Dire Avengers can do that. But you ever seen Dire Avengers shoot out a shield generator? It's one of the most pathetic things you've ever seen in your life. But with Striking Scorpions, that becomes very much so doable. Next up, we have the Wraith Lord. The Wraith Lord, for me, is really fun. It's thematic. It's awesome. It comes with a great doctrine, obviously, which does free up a slot so that you can put something else over here. But other than that, I mean, he's super tanky. He's good. He is good. I don't actually have anything to say in terms of, like, he's not good. It's just that I think there are better options. Probably a Kyre. Maybe you can even make an argument for, like, a Maka or Warp Spiders. But 7 elite point, melee kind of foot slogging dude, nah. He is really important in this game in particular, and we'll talk about why when we get to it. And then there's the Shooty Knight. I've seen a lot of people in 1v1s hedge their elites in the mid game, so they'll have like a 2-pointer, a 3 or 4-pointer, and then like as high as like a 5 or maybe a 7-pointer. But going all the way up to the top is an interesting tactical decision. Again, I want to just clarify, this to me is not the best setup. But it's really, really fun, and it isn't the worst either, so that's kind of part of the reason why we did this. But the Shooty Knight, if you can get up there, is game changer, obviously. But if the game, most games don't get up there, so that's why people are starting to do other things. And let's take a look at Larry's. Larry's is as close as you can get to pretty standard. Like the Storm Boys, a lot like the Scorpions, has become absolutely essential. You can bomb with them. You can siege even turrets. Every time I say that word, man. Every time I say it, people hate on me for how I say that word. The big shooty building tower thing, or shield generators, their utility is through the roof. They're like you'll almost never see an Ork player without them. And then the interchangeable one is either going to be Weird Boy, Zap Noggin, or Gorguts in this slot. Typically, sometimes both, and that is that kind of mid-game play as well. Personally, I like the Weird Boy. He's got that game changer where it's like, oh, you didn't see me teleport in, and there goes your 5 Dire Avenger units, or whatever your Lion Soldiers are. It's just a very, very impactful game changer. Obviously, he falls off later, but even then he has a large AoE stun, which can be extremely helpful with things like Knob Taunt and stuff like that. And then he too went with the Beauty to Morkanaut, the 9-point elites. Some people are not playing towards this, but it's an option. And then over here, just the Knob Doctrine. Interesting. Truck play. Truck is absolutely essential to Orc play. And then Tractor Pull, this is one that some people take off. I personally think it's incredibly good. If you could get like a truck right here, in reversal of course, he's not going to siege his own spot, but then you like launch over here, attack this resource node, and then pull them back. Just does a lot to keep them very survivable. We actually didn't talk about my doctrines real quick, but this is, by the way, 2 of these 3 are like, unfortunately, extremely bland in that this is what every Eldar player is doing. Dire Avenger's shield being better? Yep. We have to use Dire Avengers early on. Improve plasma grenades? Yep. It's their most powerful ability. And then this is the one that's a little bit interchangeable. I've been using the improved listening post just because I think it's extremely powerful to be able to... If you can take an early resource node from your opponent and then stick a listening post on it, that's a huge problem for them. Maybe not the most sound strategy, but still good. Getting to the game here, we got some boys kind of... The middle of this map is really, really fun, because this is where the challenge goes back and forth. The timing on that was really terrible, because he just gets it. And then not capping this and walking off it, it was, I think, a pretty big mistake. Trying to delay him capping it right here. Doing an okay job. Dire Avenger's going to pull in here, though, in a second, and BadManLarry's going to pull back. And the dance begins. Capturing this one's not a super big deal. You're not going to spend the money on elite points at that stage, and having it captured is a little bit of vision, but other than that, it's nothing much more. So if you can take it without incurring any losses, then sure, go for it. But if you do take losses, then you're going to feel kind of silly. Go back and try to capture that. We do take both the middle ones so far, but like I said, this one is... You almost don't even factor this in. This does not matter. If you do sneak an elite node, that can be both cool and bad because it's expensive. Let us make the most of this resource. And then we see that he also doesn't have this middle one, so that's a good sign for us. We're going to start to poke and prod. And this is where we got to be a little bit dangerous because that is where Orcs will typically set up their bases, either here or on the similar point on the other side. But the nice thing about this is we're going to go ahead and harry some of these boys, and you can hear for a wall, or you can even trigger a wall prematurely. Maybe he doesn't feel comfortable attacking or pushing off of that, but you can kind of force him into the situation where he thinks he has to. We do go listening shrine over here, and this is a point of issue that you could criticize for sure. I don't know that it's even a safe play. The DPS off of this is not particularly strong. It is hard to kill, which is nice. So if you can play to that, that's cool. Like, if you can never catch these Dire Avengers and I can constantly retreat to it, pull back over here, and shoot into whatever is attacking the listening post. Because keep in mind, it's an improved one, so it's got a little bit more defense. That's a nice play. But we're just reasonably sure he's on the left side. He hasn't done a wall, speak of the devil. Or wog. I understand Orc players are pronouncing that G. I don't know, guys. It's an ongoing issue for me. Then over here we also take another listening shrine, and this of course means that I don't have like a 4th or even 5th Dire Avenger unit. And if you watch someone like Bike Rush, who's been winning tournaments and is arguably the best player in the game, he does not do things like that at this stage, and instead favors the Dire Avengers and is very active with them. And I think that is probably closer to the top level play, at least as we know it right now, as opposed to putting listening shrines there. But I don't want to beat myself up too much over it. Listening shrines aren't the worst choice either. It's just that they certainly, well, not even certainly, but they probably are not the best choice. We're going to pull up, though. The wall was more of a mind game thing. Got to be careful, though. He could come up off of this. In fact, I don't even poke over here, so I guess got to be very mindful of a grenade hitting me or something. And then the striking scorpions come in, and this is the strong point for Eldar. But again, I wish I had maybe even a 5th unit. Move that up just a little bit, I guess. And he's got Storm Boys at the same time. Going after them like this is a little bit iffy, because they haven't used their ability yet. But if I can juggle them with grenades, you can get them quite low, as you can see. Killing them there would have been game-changing. Not killing them is a little bit of a... was it worth it? Maybe. Where's his army, though, right? We're not entirely sure where it is. I make the weird choice to go after this despite taking damage from that, and that was... Well, it's kind of working out, because they do get to crit immediately. They don't really help DPS-wise, they're going to go after the tower. So we do get that early shield generator that's huge, and then here comes the response. He went with a truck, and you can kind of almost reasonably be assured that because we're not seeing his army from the left side, he built his base over here. He just has log towers over here. Losing the striking scorpions there. A little bit curious. They don't do a lot of damage to trucks, do Dire Avengers, so that's just a bad shot. Should have focused on these guys. I wouldn't have killed them because, as you can see, the tractor pull does pull them back. But them, like you just saw 4 units shoot at a truck, and it looks silly. It just doesn't do anything. And there's that improved listening post actually holding off a unit. That's the difference between that and a non-improved one. And now we're going to run over here. Huge advantage to take off that early shield generator, though. But the resources a little bit wasted. I think we went to tier 2. Nope, we didn't even go to tier 2. Did we get a couple of upgrades off or anything like that? Doesn't look like it, so most of the money was just kind of spent in upgrading our resources and getting these units out. So it was okay. It's nice objective-wise, and now we're going to focus on the right side.
We have finished our task.
Now keep in mind, his Storm Boys did not die. My Striking Scorpions did, so this is a moment where anything that I'm out here doing is pretty risky, especially if I'm outside a fleet of foot, so I have to be very careful.
We have completed power.
I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. But now I am anchored by those listening posts in the middle. He hasn't felt comfortable enough to go around and harass these exterior bases. That would have been where he could have gotten some work done. Get another log tower. And I'm just kind of bullying him around back and forth. I now have vision of the middle, so I'm not as worried about getting hit from the high ground. Bait out a shot there. His boys come over. So I'm looking at his army, and I'm just like, that's not that super impressive. It's 2 or 3 units. My army can't stand toe-to-toe with it necessarily, but with the Striking Scorpions about to come in and the Banshees about to come out, I do feel like I all of a sudden have that kind of army that can go face with his. Again, constantly mindful of the high ground. Whiff on that in a big, big way. That's pretty pathetic.
Shall join the war, securing battle focus, regeneration upgrade. We have upgraded infantry health.
Now he's starting to get out some shooter boys. He whiffs on that shot as well, but is able to land it on that. Now my Striking Scorpions are just out there by themselves, and that is the beginning of a rough time. I then bring my force over. Banshee's going after a truck. That's not good. That's not the best target. And this is just a bad fight. Knobs, incredibly powerful here. He's able to drop the AoE on. I'm losing all my Dire Avengers. I don't have the anchoring force of the Striking Scorpions. And now I'm just all but dead. All but dead. Even throwing Banshees into the fray right here. I shouldn't have done that. Just save them. They're not getting their money's worth right here. Reinforcing is a thing in this game. I think I throw another unit of Banshees away. If those 2 units of Banshees are able to kind of collect themselves back at home, that's the beginning of a force. Joined by something else, all of a sudden they can do something, but individually coming out like that, that's just a really poor, bad decision. And you can always reinforce, whereas me replacing an entire unit is way more expensive. So just kind of keep that in mind. I do get that elite point, but he's going to take it away. And nicely done by him right here as he's multiple attacking. So again, this is where the, imagine 3 units now. 2 units of Banshees and 1 unit of Dire Avengers. I could punish a move that he just did like this, but without them, I can't. Knobs so powerful when they initially come out, by the way. Not just their taunt ability, but just the raw DPS they represent, and their tank ability is incredible. That's definitely a planned tier of the game where, Orc is really disadvantaged earlier on. Boys against Dire Avengers, very frustrating for the Orc player. But then when Knobs come out, it flips on its head. It becomes more, desperate for the Eldar player, unless they set themselves up incredibly well. If I had something like a Falcon right now, or a couple units of Wraithguard, it's a little bit less true. He's able to tear down this listening post, and that gives him both the middle objectives, and I haven't recapped this. which I should have done, by the way. I should have sent off a unit or a Bone Singer or something. I've got 3 Bone Singers. There should have been one of those fine ladies over here working on this immediately.
Howl shall join the war host.
They perish.
To go retake this, timing on that's really tragic for him.
The webway gate is under attack.
You can see him pushing up.
Relocating webway gate.
No cooldown on that, just dies. I send them to go clean this up. But that's shouldn't have done that. Like I said, it should have been a Bone Singer. Now the Scorpions once again isolated and nuked. And that's, you know, if I was behind earlier, I'm now incredibly behind.
We have lost a requisition generator.
Leaving the Striking Scorpions here, I probably could have done the Hunter Sense or whatever it's called. Gone invisible. That would have been the better call. I am able to chase these guys off, especially before he caps us, but he destroyed the resource nodes. That's good enough for him. Now the game has been delayed to something here, and that's where I did get up to the 7th elite point, and that is the Wraith Lord. So there's kind of an interesting choice here. You're way behind, and then from this stage you could just wait for 2 more elite points and just take your pounding basically, and get out the Mega Unit and hope that that's going to be what gets you back into the game. For me, I find this moment in time really nice, actually. The Wraith Lord is extremely tanky and represents a lot of damage for when it comes out. So, obviously, as the game goes on, those factors kind of deplete and diminish. But right now, I could really use him. The knobs are just tearing me up. He doesn't really have strong isolation units. Like, he's not going for Ludas or whatever that could drag down a Wraith Lord, excuse me, pretty quick. Most of his army is pretty soft, and if I could get some big swipes with that Wraith Lord, I can get myself back into the game. Okay, here come the knobs again. Taunt, pull in, AoE. Best counter for that kind of thing, by the way, is just to be... Well, you know what? I'm going to pause and actually talk about that real quick, and these pauses, they're just for you on YouTube. That guy that hates him. Ugh, I hope you drink it up. This is not a mega high level, really well played game, by the way. That's not why we're commentating this. I'm commentating this because there's a lot of mistakes that were made and things you can do to improve. So one of the really cool things that are, I think, being featured at the higher level, obviously speed and harass is a big deal. And that's where it's really exciting and cool to watch. But one of the more subtle things that you should pay attention to is the setup for fights. Dawn of War is very different from the other RTSs I've played in my life, like StarCraft, where you don't really set up for a fight and then come into it. There is, of course, setup, but it's less emphasized because the game doesn't have clumps of units. It has individual units, so you can much more manually select and move people in the middle of a fight and that kind of thing. But in Dawn of War, if you have 3 or 4 units in the same area and they get hit by an AoE, that's 3 or 4 times 5 or 6 or whatever. It's a much more impactful moment in time than in a game like StarCraft, where those 4 or 5 guys of the 40 you have getting hit by AoE is unfortunate, and certainly you could have mitigated that, but it's not, you know, game ending. Whereas right here, I lost all my units. So what I should have done is had like a unit here, unit here, unit here, unit here, shooting into that, especially since they're not all melee units. There's no huge advantage to them. In fact, it's just a detriment to have them in the spot that they were. That way, when he does the taunt, he grabs maybe a unit or 2. I'm throwing grenades and I'm shooting into it, and then it becomes a good moment for me. That's just the example right here, but that kind of example of how to engage in Dawn of War is rampant everywhere, and I hope you guys are fighting better than I did in this game to achieve that. So the Wraith Lord comes out. Immediately the knobs are like, oh, hang on, we're not the biggest kids in the playground anymore. But it still remains that I'm off the middle. I used all my elite points, so I'm not close to a Wraith Knight or something like that. So how do I get back into this game? Well, it's going to have to be off the back of the really powerful abilities of him. Perhaps being able to harass here at tier 2 or 3. Getting the Striking Scorpions out and having them where I am not. But I was waiting at the top of this ramp because I wanted him to wah up it. Didn't quite get there. But I get a nice swipe over there. He's off by himself. Normally this would be really bad, but again, at the stage he comes out, excuse me, he's the biggest dog, man. He's a tough cookie. And I did actually set up for this fight over here against the knobs, so they don't grab much. I'm able to deflect them, and he's just throwing everything into the Wraith Knight. But the Wraith Knight don't care. He doesn't play your puny mortal games. He's a gigantic bone structure with his sword that's, you know, twice the size of everybody on the battlefield. lands a massive swipe, and all of a sudden the miracle begins to become a reality. And it's because BadManLarry misjudged the Wraith Knight, or the Wraith Lord, excuse me. If he would have just kind of ignored it, backed away, retooled, and equipped an army that's better able to handle this, he would have been in a much better position. But instead, we're pushing up into the underbelly of his army. If we can get a couple of Boys Hut, or Daka Hut, excuse me, a couple of Wah Towers, that'd be great. Poor Scorpions once again being mistreated by me, by the way. I should pull this back. This is not good. Don't leave a single model out there. I think I do try to pull it back. And I do eventually actually get that to happen. Dire Avenger's going to drag down this tower. This is all nice. But what should have been happening is I should have been with a Bone Stinger at least scouting this and see, or, you know, or a single Dire Avenger, use something. You never want your army all in one spot. If you're ever doing that, you're playing this game less than optimally, is what ends up happening here. But I know BadManLarry's on his back foot. Let me go ahead and start healing. Army-wise, we have some Dire Event, or some, excuse me, some Dark Reapers coming out. And then we're going to push into this generator as well. And I'm setting up. Let the Scorpions get in there and do their thing. This is what they're actually good at. Of course, Dark Reapers can hurt this. And boom, just like that, 2 objectives down. So on paper, it's like I'm winning actually, right? Doing pretty good here. Getting the Infinity Portlet. And this is a big fight over here. Swipes through 1 unit. Shooter boys go down almost immediately. He knobs in, but again, the setup is really good for me. Comes in with another knob unit. This is where it gets a little bit hard. Is able to pull back the other one, by the way, if you didn't see that with the truck abduction. Does get in 2 units. AoE's on top of him. Good engagement for him. But both are really low, but he does escape, and that's a huge part of Dawn of War 3. That unit, however, not as lucky. In Zapnoggin, I'm not worried about as much, as long as I keep my units spread, avoid the AoE like that. Look at the Wraith Knight, just not... The Wraith Lord, I always do that. The Wraith Lord doesn't give a damn. And he did defend this, by the way, in the background. We did end up scouting that. Lands a good shot up there on the Dark Reapers. Going for it again. This is the Knobs. Doesn't have the AoE to follow it up. There's Zapnoggin trying to do what he can, but is able to pull back. And every time he's able to reinforce and save those guys, it's a huge deal. Pulls that back as well. We need that truck dead in the worst way. Lands a giant AoE there. Does lose Zapnoggin in the background. I think that's who that is, right? Or maybe there's a knob. So he actually loses that knob. That was a bad mistake. But this fight's starting to get rather weathered. There's the knobs. There's Zapnoggin, frying a couple units. All of a sudden, it's my army that's getting a little bit taxed here. I have a Wraithguard unit out, and I have 2 more on their way. So that's where I feel very powerful at this point in time, in that regard. I would have liked the Wraithguard to maybe, like, send 1 unit to siege this, and then if he jumps on them, maybe queue out of there, just, you know, recall their soul stones. That would have been a cool move. But I was just kind of a little bit too tunnel vision on the fact that I really wanted to win a fight here. This seemed to be where the entire game was going to get decided, and I wanted it. There's his setup. AoEs pulls just about my entire army. Doesn't get any AoE on it for him. And in the backfield, his Storm Boys are going down. Not Storm Boys, excuse me, but Shooter Boys. And there's the AoE. Hits most of my entire army. But at this point in time, Wraithguard are really tanky. So that technique that he's doing isn't nearly as effective. It's obviously good at removing Dire Avengers, Dark Reapers, that kind of thing, but Wraithguard can tank it. And these Shooter Boys are going to go down here as well. You can see I've got, what, 3 units? Single unit of Banshees. That was kind of an interesting choice. I think that's something that in Dawn of War 3 I'm still working on. This is not frivolous. It's not like I'm sitting in 5,000 requisition or something like that. They don't cost a lot of powers where that is not the biggest of deals. But it's okay to float a little bit of power, because a lot of what you are going to be able to do, effective-wise, is retooling your army. And this single unit of Banshees, I guarantee you, I can't remember, but they're going to walk off, and they're going to get immediately nuked. They're just going to walk out there and die. The game has moved past the time where Banshees are okay. Unless you're doing like a full-on Banshee Doctrine type of thing. He just harassed me in the background. I would have liked to have called scorpions there. This is okay. It's an okay roll for him, but I would have liked that a lot better. And now we're, again, in a very powerful position. We've taken the right side away from him. He's down to just the this node and the one that's right here. But we just heard Beauty to Morkanaut, I believe. Yep. There he is. Now, this is an important point in time. I want to talk about this. So there's definitely a different flow to Dawn of War than what I'm used to. He comes out, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's going to be tough to kill, but certainly I must kill it. I do not think that is, and I'm not sure if I do this or not, but this is a more important moment in time. I feel like what this should represent is, oh, I can't engage at all. I'm not going to fight anywhere near it. I'm 1 point away from my equal shooty Wraith Knight. Then I have the ability to perhaps deal with this, especially when it's backed by an army. But if I engage just moments before on that point, it is uniquely the worst time to do that. Eldar have tremendous mobility. Even the Wraith Guard, as long as they're in fleet of foot, move very quickly. I should have just basically immediately mentally switched to wherever he is, I'm not. And that means taking resources, that means buying time. Sure, if you want to get off a volley like that, that's great, but then I back away. This thing's not very quick, it's on the right side, it used one of its abilities. So I immediately move over here, and I slam into this, and I should take it. Cap it if you can, but maybe not. And he's coming over. Now what choice do I make? Do I fight here? Looks like I'm starting to fight, and it's going to cost me a unit of Wraith Guard, which I should have queued out, and at least 1 unit of Dark Reapers. I keep doing that too. And I do end up backing away. But even that little fight that I took was probably not the right call. And he's doing a good job. He's trying to corral me. He's abducting more units. It's costing me. Now we're starting to take a fight here. So I do delay pretty well, by the way. Obviously, I could have done a better job of just purely not doing it. But now my army's a little bit depleted, and I jump into this fight. And here's the duel. But he's hitting me with those Ludas back there. I drop the E on him, but he pulls up the shield for the last small part of it. And that shield, by the way, means business. You just can't fight into it at all. The Wraith Guard are okay here. In the background, I am getting a good fight here. Pulling them back was a good call. I am a little bit separated army-wise, but that's alright. Every time he shoots, he just does not give a damn. I have my Q to escape. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. For a moment. And then I'm taking too much of a fight here. And that is the big mistake right there. I mean, that's basically the whole game boils down to that moment in time. So right here, Beauty to Morkanaut is in a manageable health position. His army is not gigantic by any means at all. But then I made the choice to jump in over here, and where's my army? Ugh. Ugh. And that's because there's no fleet of foot for them to get speedy over there at all. You can see I'm ahead in resource income, all of that. So this was a snap choice that I made, and it was the absolute wrong one. If I would just pull back, maybe even go heal, say, okay, you've got this resource, maybe you get a shield, whatever, I've got 2, I can give up an objective, but no, I jump in, and I pay the price. Down goes Wraith Knight. And now my ability to deal with the Morkanaut is still doable. Wraith Guard, Shadow Specters, they're all really good at that. But nothing at that tier gets one-shotted or something like that, unless I have 5 times what I have right now. I do like this choice, though. I had a huge requisition. We're at a escalation 3, so money's flying in. And now, once again, I'm ignoring Beauty, trying to. These guys lose their fleet of foot, so this fight's a little bit harder. They get knob pulled in. It's just all ugly business here. Here come the Shadow Specters for the big reveal. This is when they're uniquely powerful, but there's that shield. Probably should have just pulled back. But I got tunnel vision. I'm like, no, I need to kill it. He taunts me to pull me off target. Then he starts to repair, and I lose the Shadow Specters. Really nice move by him. That's why they started shooting at this. It's not because I clicked on them. It's because they literally got taunted out of their target that I wanted. Buying some time as best I can with the Bone Singer. And now it's me on the back foot. Like I said, I've been losing units.
A shield generator is under attack.
I'm able to call in a lot of stuff. I'm just trying to buy time. The Shadow Specters, they don't take a lot of damage, so they can go back and heal. And then I'm like, you know what, screw it, we're going to go after his objectives. There's building, but that's where the looters are, and they're really good at dropping Shadow Specters. He said about everything ever. The only thing I got going for me right now is how slow Beauty is. Just trying to buy out time. Scorpions die in the background. That's not the biggest of deals. At this point in time, their best role is to grab objectives. I have no idea what that was. She just wanted to stare into the sun. And now I'm like in a desperate situation where this is not a good... None of these are good engagements, but they're all like, I have to buy time, I have to do something. But ultimately, a Shadow Spectre is just too weak. It's just not going to get there. He's already on top of the objective. Then it becomes a bit of a race of time. If I called on a storm, which is what I should have done, I think it just doesn't matter. It's kind of what it ultimately comes down to. There's no army here to support it. If I have storm plus army, maybe, but a storm there would have been nice, but ultimately futile. Like, nothing's going to kill that Morkanaut. It does pack a wall up on objectives, and BadManLarry is able to take the game. A nice little back-and-forth game, but it's full of mistakes, and I think that's why this was actually a more... This is why I'm commentating it. This is why we're talking about it. Not because I'm like, this is the highest level game you'll see today. No, it was not. But it's two reasonably good players playing a game that was back and forth, and a lot of the choices made in there are what got us to where we got there. And I think you can actually scale this back to that moment with the Wraith Knight where I could have jumped away from the engagement, synced up with my army, healed up a little bit of the shield, and then gone in on the fight, and maybe the result of this game would have been different. But that's what I love about a good RTS, and I do think Dawn of War 3 is a good RTS, is that the game's not predetermined. There's a lot of... I'm going to get on my soapbox here real quick for a second. There's a lot of complaints I see floating around, and I feel like a lot of them are unjustified. Certainly there are some that are justified. Is this the perfect game? Far from it. I'm hoping a lot of the updates will fix things. The UI is pretty hideous. We're going to get a ladder. Maybe that'll make things more fun as well. Some balance issues. It's sad that tac squads are for the most part, as useless as they are. But when I play this game for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time, do I enjoy myself? Am I laughing? Am I having ooh and ah moments? Am I feeling like I'm learning things and improving? Yes. And for that to be the case a couple weeks out, but also several months out for me, because I've been playing since closed beta and actually even before that, that to me is a rewarding, fun, awesome experience. And the entire time I'm doing it with Warhammer stuff that feels Warhammery. I feel like Relic hit it out of the park with a lot of things, and I'm really enjoying this game. And I am far, far from a mega top tier player, and I'm enjoying the process of trying to get there and learning what it takes to get there. And I hope you guys will join along with that and spend less time complaining, comparing, or just being generally kind of a whiny bitch. It's a fun game. If it's not for you, then move on, because there's actually so many fun games out there that it makes zero sense to spend any time upset at a game. Why? It's going to be there for you, whether you're there or not. Move on to something else. Anyways, off my soapbox. Great game. If you, like I said, if you do want to check out BadManLarry, it's at twitch.tv/BadManLarry. Streams almost every day, as far as I can tell, for 5, 6, 7 hours. And I hope he gets less down on the game, because he's way more enjoyable that way. And assuming he does, then I highly recommend his channel. If not, then check it out, see if it's your kind of thing. If not, totally fine. I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/iNcontroL.tv. A lot of my streams are games with subs to my Twitch channel, so if you're interested in playing with me, all you have to do is subscribe to that channel and say, hey, I'd like to play some games. We will get you in there. We have a sub Discord. We have a Steam community. And just every time I stream, we just talk and hang out and play this game and others. So hopefully that's been enjoyable for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be putting up more of these kind of things, and I will see you there.